Rees Rambles, episode 32, wherein I continue my review of the great country of America based on my very limited experience of the places that we stayed over the past couple of weeks. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, I talked all about our trip to Napa, San Francisco, Venice Beach, and the Santa Monica Pier, and we were just about to head into central LA and stay just a stone's throw from Hollywood. So if you haven't listened to that, that's kind of part one of this two-part series. But yeah, let's get on with it and carry on with the trip. So by this point, we were staying with our friends who I mentioned were over there on their honeymoon. Of course, we left them alone for the first week and let them do their own thing and enjoy their honeymoon. And then we met up and decided that we were going to stay together. So we both, the two couples travelled into LA from the place where we were staying, from near Venice Beach. Our respective places that we were staying, and we rented an Airbnb, and it was this really, really nice 2-bedroom house with like a bit of a yard out the back and a bit of a sitting area and that kind of stuff. And it was in the suburbs of LA. In fact, when we booked it, we were actually told that it was in West Hollywood. We didn't actually find out until later on when a taxi driver who we confused quite a lot actually informed us that it was in an area called LA Midtown. So I don't know if you know LA at all, but very quiet suburban area, but also sort of close enough to be able to get Ubers and things to all the important stuff that you might want to check out. Which, of course, as I mentioned in the previous ramble, was kind of our predominant mode of transport in the time that we were over there. So, we're staying in this really cool little house. And the first thing that we wanted to check out, I mean, we took a walk down to the local supermarket, to Ralph's, to stock up on provisions and beers and food and stuff for our few days that we stayed there. But kind of the first big touristy thing that we wanted to do the first morning that we were there was to check out Rodeo Drive. Now, you may have heard the name Rodeo Drive. It's quite a well-known part of LA, and it's a very fancy, very upmarket area. So you've got Gucci and Louis Vuitton and Burberry and Chanel and Armani and who's who of high-end fancy pants fashion stuff. They're all represented on Rodeo Drive. And, they've all got doormen. And, of course, you've got your Ferraris and Lamborghinis making a load of noise going up and down the street. And, the place is all impeccably clean and lovely, as you might expect from an area with a lot of money. But fun to check out as a tourist. I wouldn't recommend buying anything from any of the shops because very, very expensive, as you might expect from that kind of area. We did have a very nice lunch there, and just quite a cool area to check out. We do, we go down to London as well as kind of a group, a few times a year, and we like to sort of pop into Mayfair and check out the fancy shops and stuff. It's nice to dream, isn't it? That maybe one day that, Anyway, so, we checked out Rodeo Drive, and there was one thing that I took quite a few pictures of was some really cool street art that they had kind of along the road, it was all made by a French street artist called Mr. Brainwash. And they were like these big, colourful, folded origami animals, your typical rabbits and birds and stuff, but like big, bright, colourful metal versions of those that they had down the street, which was really cool to see. If you Google Mr. Brainwash, you'll no doubt do an image search. You'll no doubt be familiar with some of the stuff that he's done. Really big name, but that was quite cool to see, and just a fancy place to hang out, really, and be treated nicely and like you're somebody important. And it was then that Catherine, my wife, mentioned that she'd heard about this bakery around the corner that had a cupcake vending machine, of all things. And so we decided that we wanted to go and see if we could find that, which we did. A place called Sprinkles, and I have to say, if you're in that area, it's quite fun experience to check out. It's a hole in the wall, and you swipe your card or you shove some cash in a slot, and it spits out a cupcake. loads of different flavours and things to choose from, and they were very good. And as you might expect, a little bit on the pricey side, but hey, when in LA, you have to do these things. And then we decided that we wanted to head up to the Griffith Observatory, which in my previous ramble, I kind of mentioned that a lot of kind of the LA and area is very reminiscent of GTA 5 because it was all kind of modelled on that area. And you'll no doubt be familiar with kind of the final showdown that happens in the story mode of that game if you've played it. Like 10 years ago, whenever the hell it came out. GTA 6 would be nice, Rockstar, if you want to sort of get your asses into gear and get that finished. But yeah, there's the observatory in that game. It's up in the like in the Hollywood Hills, kind of overlooking the city of LA. And it's this big observatory. It's an actual working observatory with an actual telescope and stuff and a planetarium. And we got the Uber up there, ridiculously busy. We had to queue for absolutely ages, to the point that we actually had a call from Uber's emergency line asking if we'd had an accident because we were sat still for so long in traffic, which I didn't even realise was a thing. But we got to the top and we got out of the car, we started walking towards the observatory, and then there was this weird thing in the sky. And it was like, what is it? Is it like a plane or something? And there were loads of people kind of gathered on there's like a huge front lawn area of this kind of observatory. And there were people with like telescopes and stuff set up, and they were all kind of gathered watching this thing. I was like, what the hell is it? It was really big and bright, and there was like these huge plumes of smoke and stuff coming out the back. And we actually discovered that it was a rocket launch, and incredibly rare to witness a rocket launch from that location. And God only knows how we'd managed to time it. But yeah, literally arrived just in time to kind of witness it unfolding. And it was a test of a military satellite, just by the by, but quite an interesting story called Victus Nox, and it's part of America's space defense force, whatever they call it. And essentially, if there's some kind of space-borne threat to America's security, one of the enemies of America launches some kind of space-based weapon. Is that a thing nowadays? Who knows? Then this is like a rapid response thing that they can launch within 24 hours notice, called Victus Nox, and it's some kind of highly secretive defensive satellite. And essentially, the US government put this company on hold and said, at some point in the future, we're going to give you 24 hours to launch this satellite to prove that you can do it. And it just so happened to happen while we were there, and we saw this launch, and it was really, really cool. And so after that, of course, it was really, really busy because a lot of people, a lot of smarter people than us had heard about this thing in advance and headed up there to see it. But after that, we headed over to the actual telescope itself, and it's interesting because it's like a proper, old school optical. I think it's a refractor. I don't know much about telescopes, but it's like a 12-inch refractor telescope, I think they call it. Quite a big thing in like proper observatory dome thing. You have these domes with like the big sliding door, and then the telescope pops out, and it's all computer controlled and stuff, and they can point it at whatever they want in the sky. And while we were there, they had it pointed at Saturn, which was really, really cool to see Saturn because, like I say, it's a proper optical telescope with like an eyepiece and stuff. And we queued up for half an hour or however long it took, and you basically get a few seconds to sort of stick your eye hole up to the eyepiece and have a little gander at whatever they're pointing it at on that particular night. And really, really clear view of Saturn with the rings and stuff. Really, really cool to see. And completely unexpected. Obviously, I knew that it was an observatory, but I kind of hadn't put two and two together and sort of thought that it was an actual working observatory where you could go up and peer through the telescope yourself. Unfortunately, they didn't let you take pictures through the telescope, which I guess is understandable because it just would have added a lot of faffing around and a lot of extra time to what already was quite a long wait for 2 seconds of looking at something. But that was cool. That was a very cool thing to see. And if you're in that area, I can definitely recommend the Griffith Observatory. It's really cool. They've got a whole exhibition in there. They've got a museum, and they've got like hands-on interactive stuff to do with astronomy and the universe and planets and interactive exhibits for the kids and that kind of thing. And they've also got a proper planetarium there. And there was actually a show on while we were there, which we decided to go and see, which was all about like the origins of life and whether there's alien life on other planets and that kind of stuff. And it was like this big sort of pre-recorded, pre-rendered, really impressive thing where you're kind of laying on your back on this big comfy chair, and the whole thing's unfolding on this giant dome above your head. And it's like this pre-recorded, pre-rendered thing, but the actual commentary for that was live. So there was a lady with a headset on who was kind of stood in the middle of it all, kind of talking us through it, and she was really excellent. Really, really good. My hat is off to her. Definitely a much better speaker than I. So that's definitely worth seeing one of those if you're up there as well. And after that, we headed back to the Airbnb for the night for another day of adventure in LA the following day. So we'd heard rumours that LA had the best Korean barbecue outside of Korea. And we've had Korean barbecue in a few places. It's not a huge thing in the UK, to be honest. I think we had it in Japan, of all places. But we thought we'd go and check out a Korean barbecue. And we thought, well, we'll skip breakfast. And that's something I should probably kind of talk about and address, actually, our kind of eating habits while we were in America. Now, I'm not ashamed to say that I put on some weight in the 2 weeks that we were there. In fact, according to my Fitbit Smart Scales, which have now decided that I'm a guest and have stopped registering my weight against my account because it's increased by so much in such a short time. But according to those, I actually put on 5 pounds in 2 weeks, which is quite a lot. But well worth it, obviously entirely due to American portion sizes and, of course, drinking a lot of alcohol and a lot of Mexican Coke. If you've heard of Mexican Coke, they have it a lot of the restaurants and stuff, and even some of the some of the big supermarkets and stuff. Unlike the Jamie Oliver stunted artificial sweetener stuff that we have here in the UK, it's made with actual real cane sugar. You look at the ingredients, and like the first two ingredients are water and cane sugar, and it is glorious. It tastes like Coke used to taste back in the 80s and 90s, and definitely have Mexican Coke if you're in America. And of course, there's Mexican Fanta and Mexican Sprite and all that kind of stuff. Not quite sure about the legalities of it, and well, of course it's legal, but it's a bit odd that it's such a big thing, but they're only allowed to make it in Mexico. But there you go. So yeah, gained quite a lot of weight due to our eating habits and due to all the Mexican Coke. And the Korean barbecue was a fantastic example of that, because they just kept bringing out meat. Essentially, the way it works is you pay your $60 or whatever it is, which is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but you do get a lot of food for your money, and it's all really good quality stuff as well. They had like Wagyu beef and stuff on the menu, and like proper, shrimp and some really nice stuff. And you have the grill, the gas-powered grill in the middle of the table, and they just keep bringing stuff out and putting it on the grill, and it takes a couple of minutes to cook, and then you eat it, and if you eat it all, they bring out more stuff. And basically over the course of 2 hours. And that was breakfast, essentially. Well, it's probably more accurate to describe it as brunch. And actually, a lot of the days we were there, we only actually ate 2 meals in the day. Usually we do, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But yeah, when we were in America, it was because of the portion sizes and stuff. We kind of did brunch and then dinner much later on in the evening. So after the Korean barbecue, which was excellent, and I'll look the place up and put a link in the usual places if you want to check out the place that we went to. After that, we went to the La Brea tar pits. So I was aware that there were these tar pit things in LA, but I wasn't really sure of the story behind them, and or why they were there. And there's basically these big pits of bitumen, of tar, road tar, that just naturally occur around the area, and they've been there for millions of years, and there's an awful lot of animals that are kind of preserved in this tar, even like dinosaurs and stuff. I mean, that's kind of how far these pits go back. And you go to La Brea tar pits, and it's just bubbling up out of the ground, like in the car park. A couple of the spaces were coned off because this stuff had kind of erupted randomly in the middle of the car park. And you walk around the grounds, and it's really nice. It's all kind of all grass and kind of landscaped and stuff. And you just come across like these random fenced off areas where the tar's just decided to kind of come up randomly out of the ground, which is really cool. It's a really cool natural phenomenon. And then you've got the actual main pits themselves, which are kind of these big areas, which they actually actively, they have archaeologists in there actively kind of excavating them and studying the stuff that comes out, because it's quite well preserved bone matter and that kind of stuff. And there's also, there's a really cool museum with lots of skeletons on display and lots of things that they've discovered in these tar pits. And the tar itself, I should mention actually, because I'd never really pondered the origins of tar before, but turns out it's actually a form of crude oil that kind of naturally occurs in the area. And in LA, kind of before it was all sort of turned into a big city and that kind of stuff, historically, a lot of people that lived there actually had their own oil wells on their land, like in their gardens and stuff. And they would pump the oil up because, of course, they were well within their rights to do that because they had the mineral rights to the land. And they had little home cottage industries selling off this oil that they'd pumped up out of the ground, and it's all just kind of naturally occurring everywhere in that area, which is really interesting. So I kind of thought this thing was just like a pit that you could just kind of go and look at, and they had like a couple of plastic dinosaurs that kind of stuck in it. But I'm really glad that we went, and it was my friend Sam that recommended it. He's actually been there before. It's one of his favourite places because he loves dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff. He's a big child at heart, which is really lovely. Yeah. So if you are in the area, another one definitely worth checking out. So after that, of course, we had to check out Hollywood itself, Hollywood Boulevard and the Walk of Fame and the Chinese Theatre and all that tourist stuff, because when you're in that area, you've got to check it out. One thing we didn't see was the actual Hollywood sign up in the hills. By the time we got to Hollywood Boulevard itself, it was quite foggy. There was like a mist, and you just couldn't see the sign at all. And then because it was sort of later on in the afternoon, it got dark quite quickly and killed off any chances of that. But whatever, I've seen it before. So we went to Hard Rock. We went to we collect the pins, the Hard Rock Cafe pins. We've got them from all over the world. So of course we went to the one in San Francisco and the one in Hollywood and one in Las Vegas, which of course I will be talking about very shortly. So we popped into Hard Rock, and then we went down and checked out the Chinese Theatre and stuff, where you've got the Walk of Fame with the stars with the people's names on, and you've got the like the handprints and stuff in the concrete outside the theatre. And I remember when I went as a kid, 25 plus years ago, I remember it being a bit of a dive, a bit of a dump. And for some reason, I'm not sure if we went on some kind of like national holiday, or maybe it was like the very early hours of the morning and on like a Sunday or something weird. But my kind of predominant memory of going there as a kid was that it was really quiet and there was like nobody around, and that everything was just kind of a bit dirty and there was like rubbish everywhere. And when we went this time, it was kind of afternoon time, and it was horrifically busy, absolutely heaving with people, as you might expect from a kind of touristy area. It was one of the places where we did come into quite close contact with drug addicts on the streets, especially one guy stood in a corner who God only knows what was going on with him, but we gave him a wide berth. All quite sad and quite unfortunate, really, but especially with the kind of the money that they have there. But anyway, on a more positive note, we decided to check out Ripley's Believe It or Not. No idea why. It's a complete and utter tourist trap, and it was fun. They had some cool stuff in there, some interesting exhibitions. Basically, Ripley was a guy who lived, a very long time ago, and kind of travelled the world, collecting all these interesting artifacts and things, like mutated baby animals with two heads and weird bits of artwork. And there's like a collection of like Marilyn Monroe stuff in there, including the famous dress. And yeah, just a really kind of weird and wonderful collection of stuff. A lot of it interactive. You can actually get hands on with it and sort of play with it as well, which was quite cool. Had a big like Star Wars exhibition there as well, which was quite fun to check out. Like I say, a bit of a tourist trap, but actually when we went in there, it was really, really quiet. We didn't really come across anyone else. We kind of saw other people going in and coming out and stuff, and you could hear that there were other people there, but actually we pretty much felt like we had the place to ourselves, which was quite cool. And a lot of fun to check out, actually. I know it's a typical tourist thing, and not really sure I can recommend it with all the other stuff that you can do around that area, but hey, certainly don't regret it, and it was a bit of fun. And that was kind of the end of our very short time in LA. And woke up the next morning with a 5-hour drive to Las Vegas across the desert. So we'd pre-booked this hire car weeks and weeks in advance, and it was decided that I would be the one doing the driving, as Sam had already done the whole of Route 66 and quite a lot of driving. I've never driven in America. I've driven quite a few places in Europe, and in my own car and in hire cars over the years, and obviously we drive on the left in the UK, and the rest of the world drives on the right. In before Australia and Japan comment saying, well, actually no, we drive on the left, but the majority of the world drives on the right. You'd think I think Americans, when they come to the UK, they make quite a big thing about driving on the left and how weird it is, but it's really not that weird driving on the other side of the world. It takes minutes to get used to it, and it's really not a problem. I think what was a bit more of a problem was the size of the car that we rented, because we had this 5-hour road trip ahead of us, which I appreciate isn't a long road trip in America. And actually, the time flew by, and it was really comfortable and really nice. And we had a couple of quite big stops in the middle, which of course I will talk about very shortly. But this car that we rented, so we basically we thought it would be. We wanted to be comfortable, and we thought it'd be quite amusing if we got a Cadillac Escalade, which is like what the president uses for his motorcade, and you see Mr. Beast and his crew driving around in them and that kind of stuff. These things are absolutely enormous, and these huge SUV things. And I decided I was awake really early that morning, so I thought, well, rather than all of us kind of traipse all the way back to San Francisco Airport to rent the car and then kind of drive back in the direction that we'd come from, I decided to just get up and get an Uber to the airport and just go and pick the car up myself. So I got there, and they didn't have a Cadillac Escalade. It's cut a long story short, but they did give me something called a Ford Expedition, and I'd never heard of one of these things. But we called it the lounge because like the legroom in the back was ridiculous. It was like it was like flying business class or something. Sat in the back of this thing. Obviously, I was driving, but this huge like plush leather armchairs, and obviously automatic, being American. And but really easy to drive, and obviously big wide roads. Even like in the cities and stuff, you've got like some bits that are like 4 or 5 or even like 6 or 7 lanes. Huge wide lanes, huge parking spaces, and really not a problem. But when you're when you've had quite a long holiday, and you're in a completely different time zone, and you're on the wrong side of the road, and you're in this enormous thing, it does take some getting used to. And I was quite glad of the fact that it was still the early hours of the morning, and that there wasn't all that much traffic on the roads. And I went back to the Airbnb, and of course we all loaded up and had a jolly good time. 2.5 hours down to a place called Calico, which was our next destination, or a bit of a stop off along the way. And I have to talk about driving in. Obviously, we didn't drive in San Francisco, but we did get quite a few Ubers around the place. But also driving in LA. I don't know if this is a thing across most of America, but people were quite mental. I like to think that in the UK, drivers are quite courteous, and let people pull out, and it's kind of maybe a bit of a slower pace of life. But everyone, driving on the roads in America, you have to keep your wits about you, particularly in the areas that we were in. Lots of people cutting each other up, driving too fast, slamming on their brakes for absolutely no reason. Kind of a bit like driving around like the M25 and around London and stuff, I guess, if you've ever done that. But Anyway, that's by the by. Once we got out of LA itself and out into the desert, it was much quieter. It was really really nice. Had the old desert driving playlist on, which was cool, and stopped off at a place called Calico Ghost Town. And this place was an old silver mining town, which had long been abandoned. Basically, they'd gone there, done some mining, found a little bit of silver, but it wasn't all that kind of profitable, and kind of given up on it and abandoned the place. Whole thing had completely fallen into complete disrepair and ruin. And then someone came along in like the 1970s and kind of discovered this place in the middle of nowhere and decided to turn it into a tourist attraction and kind of restored and rebuilt the buildings. And yeah, you can go into one of the original mines, which is really interesting. You've got all your usual family activities and things around there. There's a little train that you can go on where they give you a bit of a tour around the town and talk about the history of mining in the area and that kind of stuff. Ridiculously hot, as you might expect, in the desert. I think we're still technically in California at this point, although of course heading towards Nevada. But that was really cool. And if you do check it out, there's a town a little bit further down the road. I say a town, there's really not much to it at all, but there's a 1950s diner called Peggy Sue's, which was really, really cool. Really kind of authentic 1950s American roadside diner experience. And, we had the shakes and the floats and all the burgers and all that typical stuff. They've got the outfits and all the 1950s paraphernalia, pictures of celebrity guests over the years on the walls and that kind of stuff, and a bit of a tourist trap. But the food was good and it was a cool experience. Could definitely recommend that. And on our kind of onward journey across the desert, we decided to check out the world's biggest thermometer, which was. Well, it was the world's biggest thermometer. It's like a tower at the side of the road that displays the temperature. Kind of in the kind of Death Valley area. We didn't go into Death Valley itself, but it's kind of the area where you kind of turn off towards Death Valley. Obviously, one of the hottest places in the world. I think it's actually the hottest place in the world. So they got this big thermometer, and the visitor centre was closed, even though it was supposed to be open for another 10 minutes, which was disappointing. Something that I should point out, and something that we should put in our Google review. We were kind of joking, saying that we'd give it like a 1-star review because the visitor centre closed early. And of course, this being a review of America and all things American and of our trip, I have to mention that because it did put a bit of a dampener on the experience. We were looking forward to buying some stickers and, I don't know, souvenir tourist crap, as you do. But very quick stop off, quick turn off the highway before we got back on, and worth checking out for a couple of minutes if you're heading that way. And then looming upon the horizon was Nevada and of course Las Vegas, which was our last destination of the trip. So, Las Vegas, Nevada, infamously the party capital of the USA, and one of the very, very few places where gambling is legal. Although, well, traditionally, I'm not sure if, I think like sports betting and online gambling and stuff are actually legal now in a lot of America. But obviously you've got all the big casinos and stuff there. And hey, you've got to check it out if you're in the area. It's an experience. I think that's the best word for it. Las Vegas, while I was there, I kind of made this quip about, it's kind of, it manages to be like impressive and also quite tacky at the same time. It's all kind of got this Disneyland feel to it. All the casinos, and I have been there before, but all the casinos have like different themes and stuff. We stayed in Luxor, which is the Egyptian-themed casino. You may have seen it. It's shaped like a giant pyramid, and it has a really cool light at the top, which you can see sort of shining up into the sky at night. And interestingly enough, it was actually the same place that we stayed when I went as a kid as well. So it was quite interesting to see how it had changed. Really kind of run down and neglected nowadays, I'm quite sad to say. And I must say, something I must point out, that smoking indoors is legal in Nevada, in the casinos specifically. I don't know if they made like an exception for the casinos. And I must admit, when we arrived, it really hits you in the face. Like, you walk through the main entrance into Luxor, into the actual casino itself, and the smoke just really hits you. It's quite choking, quite heavy, and it's. I mean, if you smoke, then fair enough. That's up to you. But I don't. I used to when I was a teenager, and I've got over it. So I'm probably the worst kind of non-smoker, being an ex-smoker. But yeah, I was like, is this how we're going to end the holiday? The last few days, just getting choked out by cigarette smoke. But I'm quite pleased to say that actually you head into the other casinos, and I guess it's just a Luxor thing, because the other casinos, unless you're like literally sat next to someone who's smoking, it wasn't really an issue. I think Luxor's just not very well ventilated. The ceilings are quite low and stuff, and so if you do head into Vegas, maybe stay at like the Mirage, or the Venetian or Mandalay Bay, or there is actually one park which was next to where we were, and we were actually planning on checking it out, but we didn't make it there in the end. But apparently that one is non-smoking. So if you are not a smoker, I'd probably recommend checking that one out if you're looking for somewhere to stay in Vegas. So the first night that we were there, we headed down to a place called The Link, which was right down the other end of the Strip. And they have this big Ferris wheel thing there. If you've ever been, or if you've ever seen like the London Eye, with like the huge rotating glass pods that you can kind of stand and hang around in. Much like that, kind of on a similar scale. A really cool way to see like the Las Vegas Strip and stuff. And of course, that huge, ridiculous projection dome thing that they've built is quite near there as well. So it's a good place to check that out. Very impressive. But we went there, and obviously I'd had like quite a long day of driving, and I was tired, and I don't like people at the best of times. And it was Saturday night as well. So it was just like really overcrowded, and we queued for absolutely ages to get into this thing. And when we got in there was some like really drunk. There was one guy in particular who was really drunk and being noisy and leery, and I mean, he was friendly enough, but not the kind of social interaction that people like me tend to enjoy. So yeah, it was that was night one in Vegas. Absolute madness. Saturday night, people everywhere, loud, leery, drunk people, and face full of cigarette smoke. So not looking very hopeful. But I'm very pleased to say that things did improve a lot from that point onwards. Oh, I should mention actually something I should point out just as an aside, because it's really interesting. The Luxor that we were staying in is owned by MGM, and you may have heard, if you're keeping up with the news and kind of the tech news in particular, the whole MGM group was the victim of a ransomware attack. Actually, while we were there were two companies affected by this. One of them was Caesar's Palace, and they actually paid off the ransom and were back up and running pretty much straight away. But MGM refused to pay it. And this thing was ongoing for like 2 weeks. And there were reports that they were losing like as much as like $8 million a day, just because of all the lost business. Because like none of the machines and things were working properly. Usually you've got the slot machines, and you can walk up to it, you can stick your dollar bills in there and gamble away, and then it'll print out a little slip, and you take that slip with your winnings to a counter, and you can cash it in. But none of that system was working. So every time you won anything on a machine and wanted to cash out, you basically had to sit and wait for an attendant. And they were really, really slow. One of my kind of really positive experiences of America, or at least the areas that we went to as a whole, was that customer service everywhere was excellent, like really, really excellent. All the restaurants and everywhere that we went, people are really helpful and polite and friendly and quick. Which is something that we don't get in the UK. Everyone's really grumpy in the UK. But the casinos, particularly like Luxor where we were staying, was it was a completely different experience. We sat around waiting a lot of time for them to sort stuff out, and they had big signs everywhere, and they had machines that were like shut down, and it just added to like the whole kind of rundown experience of it all. And we went to we actually ended up going over to Mandalay Bay, which is even further kind of down the other end of the Strip. because Luxor and Mandalay Bay are like right on the end of the strip, kind of away from all of the kind of the main stuff. And that's also owned by MGM. And it was also, that was even quieter, and also kind of a very similar situation with a lot of stuff that wasn't working properly. But they do have a very cool shark aquarium, which is well worth checking out. So you can pay to go into this aquarium, and they have like actual real life sharks swimming around, and there's a tunnel you can go through, glass tunnel, and they're all kind of swimming around you, and you've got like manta rays and turtles and all that kind of stuff. Really, really cool experience, and probably good to take a break from the gambling anyway. We decided to check out the last Hard Rock Cafe of the trip, which is also on the Las Vegas Strip, and we got there's like a monorail between a few of the MGM hotels, so we went back from Mandalay back over to Excalibur, across the road, across the Strip, and had a bit of a wander down there, and stumbled across this Stranger Things store, which was a really cool thing. It was obviously all run by Netflix and like an official thing. And inside, if you're familiar with Stranger Things, if you've watched it, they had like the original house with like the fairy lights and the letters on the wall and that kind of stuff. The arcade and the high school from the later series, and it was all like really sort of authentically modelled with arcade machines and cabinets full of old sort of 80s stuff and 80s music blaring out. And then while we were actually there, and I guess it happens every so often, but the music kind of cut out, and the spooky noise started, and the lights started flickering and stuff like that, and just a really sort of thoughtful and kind of well put together experience. Obviously, just a shop selling Stranger Things merchandise, but just the kind of thing that you randomly stumble across when you're kind of wandering around Vegas. Everything they do has to be kind of extra and over the top, and just a really cool thing for a fan of the show. And then we obviously we went to Hard Rock, and we got our pins, as you do, and we went to Brewdog. And I guess I wasn't really aware that Brewdog had a bar in Las Vegas. Of course, big Scottish independent brewing company. They've been in the news quite a lot because of some of their employment practices and some of the behaviour of the owners of the business. Who, anyway, I should point out that I am what's known as an equity punk. I am a shareholder, a very early shareholder in Brewdog. Helped to sort of crowdfund their stuff. So I'm always interested in checking out what they have going on. And this place was absolutely huge, and they must have spent so much money on it, because it was just, well, it was Vegas, it was just over the top, and it was massive, and it was all done to a really high standard, really, really cool place. And it was practically empty. There's this really cool rooftop terrace that you can kind of go up to and have your food and stuff up there, and it's all kind of overlooking the Las Vegas Strip. Really nice part of the Strip, really sort of quite centrally located. And there were other people up there having food and drinks and stuff, but went down into the main kind of bar area, which is like this massive warehouse thing. And it was empty. We were literally the only people in there, and it's just crazy. And it just makes you wonder how long that's going to last. So, if I were them, I'd probably be thinking about maybe cutting my losses and getting rid of it. And, I think marketing-wise, that it's got like these huge Brewdog logos and stuff on the outside, and it's very much like, look at us, we're Brewdog, come here and drink our beer and stuff. But the trouble is that they don't have the brand recognition in America that they have here in the UK. And I think that's part of the problem, that they're sort of entirely, I'm sat here trying to tell Brewdog how to do their marketing strategy. But, they're kind of entirely reliant on people kind of recognising the brand and going, hey, Brewdog, cool, let's go in for some, interesting craft beers and things. And actually, Americans don't know what it is. So what's the incentive to go there? Versus other places in Vegas. But it's a really cool experience, and really well, it's all sort of really well designed and built, which of course is something that I've said about everything in Vegas, because it's very much... Oh, I have a cat, Tiff. Tiff the cat has just jumped on me. What was I saying? So just really interesting, another really interesting thing to check out in that kind of general area. Of course, there's an awful lot of stuff to check out in Vegas. And then, other stuff that we kind of checked out while we were there. We went to the Venetian, where they have yet another interpretation of Venice. Of course, I was talking about Venice Beach and the Venice canals in LA in the previous ramble, and this one's kind of a lot more authentic to the real Italian Venice experience. Doesn't smell as bad as the original. That's one thing that we kind of remarked on, and it's all indoors as well. So they've got like this fake sky and stuff. All very kind of grand scale, and we went to this Italian restaurant while we were there, which was really, really nice. So that was cool. Obviously another place that I remember checking out when I was a kid, when we were there as a family. And we also checked out Fremont Street, which is kind of the original Vegas. And it's not something I'd really sort of thought about, or it's not something that I'd checked out on my previous visit, but our friends had been there before, and they really sort of recommended that we check it out. So we went down there, and you've got like the Golden Nugget and kind of the original casinos, which are on a much smaller scale to kind of the more modern stuff, but really different vibe and a different feel in that part of town, and quite cool. Unfortunately, we only had a couple of hours there because we actually went off to see a magic show at the Mirage, and we just kind of had a couple of hours to kill, so we decided to pop over and check that out. But I think in future I'd maybe quite like to sort of stay in that area and spend a bit more time in that area, because it was quite nice, quite sort of chilled and quite classic and good. Like I say, good vibes, good classic Vegas vibes. And went on to see a magic show with a chap called Shin Lim, who I must admit I hadn't heard of, but he won America's Got Talent, apparently. He does like close-up card magic, which they'd kind of turned into a stage show. There was a British magician, I can't remember the Colin something, who he kind of teamed up with to put the stage show together, which was really, really impressive. Really good magician. He's been on a show called Penn and Teller Foolers. If you've heard of Penn and Teller, who are really well known in the magic world. They have this TV show where they get magicians on and they try and fool them. They kind of have to try and work out how the tricks are done, and if they don't, then the contestants win, and they're said to have fooled them. Which apparently this guy did twice, and he's the only person to have ever fooled Penn and Teller twice. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted because I've still got a cat here. But yeah, Shin Lim, really, really brilliant. That was Sam's idea. He's a huge fan, and definitely didn't disappoint. A really cool show. Lots of audience participation and stuff as well, which of course we took part in. So that was cool. And then, last destination of the holiday was the Pinball Hall of Fame, which is kind of very much up my street. They had a lot of arcade machines and stuff there as well, and a lot of kind of old school like fairground games, travelling show games, county fair show type stuff. And I must say as well, in the previous episode, I kind of skipped over one of the things that we did in San Francisco, which was the Musée Mécanique. The reason for that is because I'm making videos on both of those. But I actually made a very brief video on the Musée Mécanique while we were there for my good friend Lee from he has a YouTube channel called More Fun Making It, and he actually did a charity live stream for a local charity. Unfortunately, he did have a few guests on and stuff, but unfortunately, I couldn't make it on as a guest because I was away on holiday in a very different time zone. But I did put together a very quick video with some of the footage that I got covering the Musée Mécanique in San Francisco. And I'm also going to be doing the same with the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. I got loads of good footage of some of the machines and stuff there. So watch out for those on Control-Alt-Rees on the main YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to that so you can see those when they're ready. But that was pretty much our 2 weeks in America. California, Nevada, starting off up in Napa Valley, heading down to San Francisco, LA, and then across to Vegas. Loads and loads of stuff that we could have done as well. Like I said before, there's the Grand Canyon and Hoover Dam and Route 66, which our friends did, but we didn't. Yeah, loads of cool stuff to do in that area. Lovely weather, lovely people, fantastic level of service everywhere you go. Quite expensive, but hey, that's kind of the tourist thing for you. But hope you've enjoyed hearing all about my wonderful trip to America and hearing my impressions of some of the stuff that we got up to over there. Maybe that's given you some inspiration for your own trip. Obviously, there's a lot of there's like the computer museum in San Francisco and all the kind of Silicon Valley stuff and all the history around there, which would have been really cool to check out. We just had a really kind of busy agenda to fill. So we'll definitely be back at some point in the future, perhaps not the immediate future, but definitely at some point to kind of check out that area again. Yes, I hope you've enjoyed joining me for these 2 slightly longer episodes. And that's all I have for you in this particular instalment. So thank you very much for listening. Look forward to seeing those videos on the Musée Mécanique and the Pinball Hall of Fame on my channel at some point in the future. And thank you very much for listening. Bye.